What if I told you that Pluribus's fourth episode is genius, not just for the story, but for the hidden details that creator Vince Gilligan carefully put into every scene? For instance, this graphic on the wall at Menuso's storage facility that says Espacio Único, which translates to unique spaces or one of a kind. I like how this ties into Pluribus's logo, where the I is replaced with a 1, representing both Carol's uniqueness in this new world, and the phrase e pluribus unum, which means out of many, one. These touches are deliberately placed by the filmmakers, and once you see them, you can't unsee them, and once you notice them, you can't help but wonder, why? What are the filmmakers trying to say with these touches? There's many details present in Pluribus's fourth episode that further develop the motifs we've seen so far. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is something in Menuso's apartment. Orange colors dominate this particular set, but there's one item in his apartment that's distinctly blue, which is this bug zapper near the ceiling. If you've watched my past videos on Pluribus, you know that the color blue is everywhere in this show and represents the hive. I'll talk more on that later, but in case you don't believe me, other YouTubers have made videos saying similar things. I've also talked about the heavy use of bee and wasp metaphors in Pluribus and how it ties into what I call the hive mind of the show.
A wasp, even. If it's about to sting, you don't kill it?
No.
When you take both of these motifs into consideration, it makes this bug zapper take on a different meaning. Director Zetna Fuentes does a good job framing this blue flytrap in the background of certain shots. Even though it's blurry, it's still there, and visually, it helps provide some contrast to the dark, orange ambiance of his apartment. But she could have positioned Menuso's anywhere in his apartment, or framed these close-up shots from the side, eliminating this blue light from the background. Why all this work to keep it in frame if it's not important? In the same opening sequence, we see flies buzzing around Menuso's trash, and a member of the hive delivers food to him in a Volkswagen Beetle, which is called that because of its round, distinct, bug-like shape. It's fascinating because I live in Mexico, and the Volkswagen Beetle, or Vocho as it's called here, is extremely popular. But Menusos lives in Paraguay, and upon a quick Google search, I learned that the Beetle is nowhere near as popular there as it is here in Mexico. So why not use a Toyota Hilux in this scene, which is significantly more popular than the Beetle in Paraguay? But wait, there's more insect references in this episode. When Carol opens up her whiteboard closet, we see the notes she has for her 5th Waikaro book. At the very top it reads, "Killer Sand Flea Men?" And after she starts writing down a list of things she knows about them, one of the points reads, "Can't kill, not a fly." There's one other insect reference in this episode. Larry talks about a passage they love in her first novel, describing Lucasia's beautiful gown.
Gossamer threads of the finest Shang silk shimmered like spun gold, as if the sun itself were showering Lucasia's shoulders with resplendent kisses.
Gossamer threads are extremely fine, delicate strands of spider silk. Side note, this talk of gold in the sun also ties into Pluribus's yellow color motifs present throughout the show. Yellow represents Carol, in fact, and is heavily used in all the marketing materials for the show. Symbolically, this bug zapper speaks volumes for Menuso's character. Quick spoiler alert, but as we see in later episodes, this guy is the hive's biggest enemy. He doesn't trust them for any help, and he's coming to zap the hive out of existence the first chance he gets. It's interesting because fly traps use blue and UV light because many flying insects, like biting flies and mosquitoes, are highly attracted to these specific wavelengths and colors. It's the same thing for bees. They're also attracted to blue flowers more so than any other flower. This ties into the blue color motif of Pluribus that I'll talk about a little bit later. Real quick, I love the fact that Menusos uses a mechanical pencil here. I know it's a tiny detail, but for a guy that's so methodical, detail-oriented, and even mechanical at times, giving him a mechanical pencil instead of a regular one is perfect for his character. I mean, before he breaks into his client's storage units, this guy writes a note to nobody, making it a policy of his. He also checks every single frequency to find any trace of humanity out there. This guy is a machine, and giving him a mechanical pencil reinforces that feeling that he sees the world in a very black and white manner, even if it's so subtle you can barely notice it. Real quick, consider subscribing to my Substack. I publish the written versions of these essays there, along with movie reviews and thoughts on stuff I'm watching that doesn't make it into my YouTube videos. The name is Filmalysis, and the link is in the description if you want to subscribe. After we're done with Minusos, we're met with a beautiful shot of a white cloud against a deep blue sky. It's here I want to talk about the evolution of both blue as a color motif in episode 4 and water, which is a motif I've talked about in previous videos. Let's start with blue. A lot of time this episode is spent in the hospital, and the overwhelming color pattern seen here is blue. This is especially obvious when Carol goes to the pharmacy room to pick up some thiopental sodium. The lighting is heavily blue in here, but also, for some reason, the medications feature lots of blue caps, boxes, and plastic containers. Outside the pharmacy room, there's a faint blue color to both Zosha's room and the hallways in the facility, and many of the signs and paintings on the wall feature blue colors as well. Blue, I think, represents the calm serenity of the hive, but also the creepy coldness of it. But when you think of the mission of a hospital and the hive's ultimate goal, the blue colors inside it start making a lot more sense. In episode 3, Zosha tells Carol that if she was walking by a lake and saw somebody drowning,
would you throw him a life preserver? Of course you would.
She uses this as a metaphor for the joining and the desire for the joined to save Carol and the other survivors. Hospitals obviously are places where people's lives are saved, and it comes into play later on in Pluribus when the hive, spoiler alert, saves Minusos from dying in the jungle by airlifting him to a hospital. Another big development of this blue motif is in Carol's wardrobe this episode. After she gets home and washes up, she switches into a bright blue shirt. It's interesting because this episode she goes undercover to find out more information about the hive. On her whiteboard, she writes in blue ink everything she knows about them. Then she pulls Larry aside to secretly find out whether they can lie. Then she goes into the pharmacy, tests a drug that's sometimes referred to as truth serum, and secretly uses it on Zosha. Carol's wardrobe this episode reflects her getting closer to the hive, even just as a spy. But a thought occurred to me while writing the script that really puts this blue color scheme in a new light. Episode 3 starts with a flashback of Carol and Helen visiting an ice hotel. There's heavy blue lighting in that scene as well, and while Carol initially hates being there, we can see in her eyes as she gazes at the northern lights at the end of the scene that she's starting to love it. Then, later that episode, she tries putting into words what it must feel like being part of the hive. She mentions a few breathtaking examples, like having coffee next to the canals of Amsterdam or being on a beach in Croatia. Then she mentions being in Norway in the Arctic Circle.
In a hotel made of ice. Under a pile of furs.
I guess one of the main meanings of this blue color scheme is sheer bliss, like a calm pool, or gentle ocean waves, or blue skies on a beautiful sunny day. It's the bliss that the hive feels every second of every day. And I like how this peacefulness is represented in the show. As Carol walks out of the hospital, there's absolutely nobody around. It's a beautiful sunny day, it's quiet and serene, like Kumba says,
Peace on earth.
It's here I want to suggest another possible color motif for the hive, white. In this episode, we see a milk truck behind Carol and a guy delivering milk jugs to the hospital. Carol even helps Zosha open one in her hospital room. We later find out, spoiler alert, that these milk cartons contain a liquid made from human remains. It doesn't taste good, obviously, which we can see in Zosha's face when she takes a sip here. When director Zetna Fuentes used this shot of a cloud against a blue sky to transition from Minuso's story to Carol's, it started ringing some alarm bells in my head. Shots against the beautiful blue sky of New Mexico were used in episodes 2 and 3 as well. It's a common recurring method of shot framing in Pluribus. So, clouds? Really, Tom? That's what you want to talk about now? Well, in my previous Pluribus video, I talked about water being a motif in this show. It's backed up pretty well with dialogue, sets, and story beats, and as I stared at this shot of the cloud, I realized something right in front of my face. Clouds are made of water. Not only that, but large homogeneous clouds we see in the sky are actually just millions of tiny droplets or ice crystals gathering together. So it's an e pluribus unum situation. Out of many, one. Floating clouds are a great representation of peace and tranquility as well. There's a few key scenes in this episode where Carol is framed against a window with white light coming through it, namely the scene where she talks to Larry and the scene where she visits Zosha in the hospital. It really washes these shots of all color. Then I start thinking about the whiteboards that Carol writes on in this episode, or this overhead shot in the hospital garden of this white circular awning type structure that we see when Carol tries to drug Zosha, or even the milk. Think about that for a second. Or this snowflake pattern on Zosha's hospital gown, which connects to the recurring motif of ice and freezing in this show, and now clouds, since snow comes from clouds. In the final episode of Season 1, we watch as Carol and Zosha visit a ski resort, remember? They have a pretty important conversation there. It looks like heaven, right? In that same episode, we also see them chilling in a mansion as Carol swims in a big pool. And ask yourself, what is more serene than watching the snow fall outside? Water is heavily connected to these feelings of serenity as well. If you still don't think it's a motif in Pluribus, let's look at this scene in episode 9 where Carol and Zosha go on vacation together. Literally every single scene in this montage involves water. We see Zosha dipping into a beautiful pool, wearing blue of course. Then they're on a beach in Asia, which we get multiple shots of. Then Zosha pours Carol tea while they sit in a bubble bath. Then they obviously end at a ski resort. Does this white color motif we see mean serenity as well? Perhaps. I would love your opinions down below in the comments. Let's discuss one last thing here before ending the video. For one, Carol tells Zosha about Freedom Falls, the conversion camp her mother sent her to when she was young.
Tell me about it. Tell me about Camp Freedom Falls.
In a show about agency and individual freedom, the fact it's called Freedom Falls doesn't seem unintentional. Second, it connects back to this show's recurring religious motifs, showing how folks trying to convert you to their religion often behave just like the hive does, smiling, obsessed with saving you, and convinced that their way is the best way. What did you notice in Pluribus Episode 4? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want more prestige film and TV analysis in the future, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching this video.